You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, a podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Parker Ainsworth, to break down all things Cougs. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. If you want to join the conversation, but you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below how you ring in the new year, and do you eat black-eyed peas on New Year's Day? It's a big tradition in our household. This show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And I want to talk about, I do want to look back at last year's BYU game, honestly, because it was a great game to watch, if I'm being honest. I want to talk to them about matchups in this game. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the stylistic fight in the Houston Cougars versus the BYU Cougars this Saturday in Fertitta. Because these two teams strike me as very, very opposite. And while Houston should win on a lot of fronts, this means you've got the potential to. And, I heard a lot of coaches say a lot of crass things about potential. But potential, I guess in the most blunt terms, means, as Coach Kirk once said, you ain't done it yet. Now, I will say, and looking at this one, that Houston is the better team defensively by a long shot. But BYU scores a lot of points. Their most recent game was against Arizona State, start Big 12 play. They won that one 76-56. Another notable game on the schedule. They lost to Ole Miss in overtime, 96-85. Sounds like the super secret scrimmage that may or may not have happened between Houston and Ole Miss back before the season started was a very tight contest. That game getting into overtime feels indicative to how this one could go on the transitive property kind of idea. BYU also lost to Providence 83-64. That 64 number is key to me looking at BYU, because BYU has only been held under 70 twice this season, only held under 80 4 times thus far. Really high scoring basketball team, put up a lot of shots, worth a lot of points. They go very, very fast. It was not quite as fast of a pace of play as Oklahoma State last week. I guess at this point, that is earlier this week. Just feels like a long time ago at this point. Didn't get to talk to you in the first. And I think that that's good prep for this game, honestly, because it's not quite that fast. Houston, got kind of blitzed early, it felt like, and was down, I guess, initially 17-13, and then went on a gigantic run the rest of the way in that one. So I would imagine that Oak State was a good preparation for this one for Sampson and staff. This team's just much better offensively, right? And so you can't let yourself – a 4-point hole is a thing that happens in basketball. You can't let yourself get in a big hole, though, in this one even early. They are a top 100 pace team, I guess, is the thing I'm trying to say. The biggest difference, though, between this and what Oklahoma State just did is not the about second difference in pace. It's really the way that they are incredibly efficient on offense. BYU is 18th in the nation in effective field goal percentage, 19th in offensive rebound percentage. That means of the shots they miss, only 18 teams get the rebound more, and effective field goal takes into account threes being a more difficult shot or whatever. There are only 17 teams that are making more shots than them in the first place. Right, I'm stumbling on my words and losing my voice at that one, because that's really astoundingly strong offense. Now, they're 65th in the country in three-point percentage. A lot of those shots come from behind the arc. They shoot 48.6 of their shots from behind the three-point line. That's what we call heavily reliant on the three-pointer. 25th best in the country in terms, if you call that a good thing, I guess. 25th, only 24 teams do that more. How about that? And that is, again, stylistically, a very different thing than Houston does. Houston's defense is known to swallow passing lanes, to cut off dribble drives, force you into traps as soon as you try to take it to down the sideline or the baseline, things like that. These guys are catching and shooting threes. There's not a whole lot of dribble drive happening, right? And so Houston's got to do a really good job of running them off the three-point line, right? Closing out shooters in a way that intentionally forces them off the line and makes them look for a different shot, because so clearly in the kinds of things that they're running out there at BYU. And I should point out that BYU is under a new coach, comes from the NBA, Kevin Young. He was in the Suns organization's memory serves me correctly. Not the 7 seconds or less Suns, although they kind of feel like that with how many threes they shoot. It is a very pro approach to the game. Hey, these shots are worth more. We're going to put more of an emphasis on them. Because of that, only 5.4% of their field goal attempts are blocked. That's good for the sixth best in the country. That's really important to me, too, and looking at Houston, this team matches up because so few of their shots put pressure on the rim. It kind of negates the strength Houston has in protecting the rim, right? JoJo, Jaewon, Javier all do a really good job of protecting the basket, protecting the rim, getting hands up, deflecting shots. Terrence has a couple blocks this year as well. Like, on the whole, this is a strength of Houston's, is to get you to drive the basket with, hounding defense, helps seconds over, gallop, jump, and blocks it. However, they don't take those shots, and they certainly don't take them contested. Only 14.5% of the shot of their points come from the free throw line. That's 338. That's bad. But what that does tell me is for an efficient offense, again, 18th in effective field goal percentage, 19th in offensive rebounding, and to get just 14.5% of their points from the free throw line, mathematically, what's happening there? And I've only watched a game and part of a second on these guys. I watched the Arizona State game, working on the Ole Miss game. Hopefully, by the time we get to the Friday episode, I'll finish that one as well. What's interesting with that one to me is that they're not getting free throws because they're not taking those contested layups that turn into free throws, right? When you attack the rim, put pressure on the rim, put pressure on the paint, right? You're going to get contact and fouls. There's just more bodies down there, right? Especially in college basketball, there's no defensive 3 seconds. And so as you're attacking, they're not driving into those contested lanes and layup areas. They're working around, finding threes, pass the ball, right? The big Achilles heel for them that I imagine Houston will do a really good job exploiting is they kind of sort of have a point guard problem in that they've only recently switched up who that guy might be. And we'll get to the matchups in the second segment, I promise. But the reason that they have a point guard problem is because they turn the ball over a lot, and they kind of have had to make a switch to take the ball out of some other guys' hands to put it in, bluntly, a large freshman from Russia's hands. Again, get to personnel in a second, but the other guards in the team, basically everyone that's not 6'9", pass the ball okay and kind of dribbles into chaos, right? Now, as they've taken the dribbling responsibility off those guys, the turnover numbers have come down, but right now on the season, BYU is committing 8 non-steal turnovers a game, meaning like unforced turnovers. And I don't know how much basketball you all have coached. That's really bad, right? And so Houston can take advantage if they can get those guys to put the ball on the ground in making unforced turnovers, right? Forcing them into bad positions, making them turn the ball over without even having to gamble on a steal necessarily, right? And I think that's really where this game is going to come down to, like, when I say styles making fights, if Houston can get BYU off the 3-point line, dribble, drive, and attack, this thing's cake. They can't attack the rim very well. They don't finish through tough lanes very well. And you're taking away what they want to do. You'll see, same way when Houston played Oklahoma State and they want to play really fast, after the first shot was open, Oklahoma State got a couple shot clock violations trying to find a second one, right? I imagine that if they're having success in shutting down the 3-point line, Houston will do the same thing in this one. That being said, I don't know that it's foolproof, and I worry that BYU's offense will still be effective because they do have big, tall, long shooters, right? They can shoot over the top of defenses, and you got to be a lot tighter to them for them to be covered, right? If you're 6'9", blocking your shot means you got to be more than a foot. I mean, you got to be closer than a foot and a half, right? You got to be close, like more than arm's length, because you also got to get up with it. And I worry that, like, while Houston's defensive effort against Oklahoma State was great, again, held them to 47 points, that's great. The offense wasn't. And I think that even with a great defensive effort in this one, Houston is going to have to find a way to score points. I want to talk about the individual matchups in a second and kind of why some of those matchups are going to be fun to watch, but make it a close game in a second. But first, today's show, as we said, is brought to you by FanDuel, America's number one sports book. The NFL playoffs are almost here. My fantasy playoffs for me have been over, but I can still get in the action with FanDuel. It's not too late to get in the regular season action either. with America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. $250 back in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits. FanDuel has so many ways to pick up the W. I like betting watch player score a touchdown. I just look at Matt. I'd say, hey, that guy's going to get a rushing touchdown in that game. Hey, they can't cover that guy for a receiving touchdown in the game. Put down $5. It hits. If it's your first bet, $250 back for the $5 bets hitting. Big time wins in FanDuel. It's FanDuel.com to join today. It's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 back in bonus bets. Make of every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.